Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Friday, January 15th, actually recording the first part of the show on Thursday, January 14th. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornital. As you can see, if you're watching along on our YouTube channel, I'm in the Brooklyn bunker once again, surrounded by some top quality vinyl, rock and roll vinyl in the main, and joined by the usual co-host of this program. We're starting off with California this week. Sometimes we leave California to the end. Today we're putting California right up top. He's got a fancy new beanie he'll tell us about. He's the People's Champion, Jonathan Kinchin. What's up, JK?
Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. See that? Oh, that's nice. I got to do something with this hair. You know what? I don't care. I'll let everybody feel it. You guys want to see what it looks like?
Yeah, let's see what's going on under there. Oh, hey now. Wow. That's big hair. Big hair even by your lofty standards.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like without any effort. So
yeah, what happens when you're not on TV for like 2 months and now you're getting ready to go back on TV? What are you going to do?
I don't know. I got to think if I'm going to color this beard or not. I just let it go. That's an in the money inside info behind the scenes. People don't know. I do a little color on that thing. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back on the show. We're on for an hour. I believe 6 to 7 Eastern, just Fairgrounds. So we'll cover the LeCompte, and so looking forward to getting the gang back together. Andy Sterling called me the other day. He's in rare form, ready to rock and roll. So I'm sure everyone will enjoy that. And Wolfie and Maggie, and then there's even a rumor that Lafitte is heading to New York to do some shows the following week. So they actually announced yesterday 22 shows between now and March through March. So
wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to get the shows back rocking again, and I'm going to be here trying to do it from here. Also, I'm waiting for the ABR trophy to get here. So
yeah, what's the status of that? Have you? You were getting a little antsy. I know you were harassing our mutual friend Dan Torchman about it. What did he say in terms of the ETA, and what did he say about our request to get 2 trophies? Don't you think one would look really good right back there in front of the vinyl?
Dan said he said that you had gotten to him first. No, that he had reached out to you, and he was sending it to you first. And I said, cancel that. Send it to Austin.
You stole my trophy.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like on the Fox show, I can do a little bragging.
I can do. I'm on TV too. I know, we have plenty of listeners in England.
I know, but the time change with the Brits, and
stop.
They're worried about Brexit. And, yeah, I mean, let's
we got problems of our own. If we're being honest with ourselves,
a little bit.
We'll get 2 trophies. I'm sure this is a solvable problem. Maybe somebody didn't pick up theirs from last year or something. I'll put a little masking tape over it. No one will be any the wiser. I definitely want that prop in behind me. How was your last weekend of freedom for a while last weekend? You make any money on the horses? Anything you wanted to touch on? I didn't really have too many notes. I thought it was a good weekend of racing, but it weren't a ton of notes I had to follow up on, unlike last week.
No, I'm an honest man. I hit the Rainbow Six, and I lost for the weekend. So that'll tell you how my weekend went. Well, in horses, I've been on a roll with with sports. So that's been good. I've been having fun doing that, and so I've had my best year in sports ever. And I think it's because, honestly, I've been accused of being a chalk eating weasel, and that may or may not be true. But I think this year that the best teams are just winning. They're not having to deal with crowd noise and momentum shifts and crazy starts for home teams that aren't as good as they are, and these situations. So it's been helpful. But before I forget, Pete, I've been doing this voice coaching thing to kind of help me breathe, and I forgot to set up. I'm supposed to grab this golden string from my belly button.
Okay.
I'm supposed to pull it up slow, and I'm supposed to be a man of stature.
Ooh.
And it's supposed to reach me up like here, and this is where I'm supposed to operate from. Is that better?
That is better.
Yeah, my back hurts.
Hey, I know you have this fancy new microphone. I hear scratching like a headset microphone on a sweatshirt. Are you sure you have the right mic plugged in?
Oh, you know what? We'll have to ask producer Craig. Yeah, it might be a thing. Let's see.
You sound good, other than this little scratchy bit. But that fancy mic, you watch the fancy podcast, you don't hear those kind of noises.
Yeah, well, I guess we're in the mid. Since we're in the middle, I can't change the mic. You know what? Maybe I'm not on this one. Let's production meeting in the middle of the show.
Tap it. Nothing. Dead as a door now. You're definitely on the wrong mic. This is one of you have to watch. If you're just listening to this, folks, come back and watch at least the first 7 ridiculous minutes of the show with the video. We're really using the video today.
That's $50 or $500 down the drain.
Just hold it so it doesn't scratch. It doesn't sound bad. Scratching
I don't know why it's doing that. I mean, we could also pause and I could fix it.
Well, I think it might be plug and play to the point where you can just switch it. Let's have a production meeting in the middle of the show. Try it. Switch over the microphone.
Well, I think I have to. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's
try it. If it doesn't work, I'll filibuster. So JK has disappeared. He's going to hopefully be fixing this and come right back. I knew how proud he was of the mic. I wasn't, as much as I enjoyed just busting his shoes. In this instance, I knew he'd want to get it right. So I figured we'd sort him out there. Hopefully he'll be back in a minute. In the meantime, we've got a great show for you today. A little bit later on, it might be working. I don't know, JK, because you're muted. You're muted. Now he's back and he's muted. Now you're unmuted. Give it a tap. Oh yeah, that's the good
back, stuff. Baby. I'm back.
Oh my goodness, this is you wouldn't have thought we'd done 700 podcasts when you listen to that. I got to check the actual number. It's actually not much less. It's not much lower of a number than 700, I think, when you combine the whatever it was. I have to look. 300 or 400 from the old place, plus the craziness we've done the last 2 years. But anyway, we have a great show for you today. A little bit later on, we're going to have perennial favorite Frank McGoey in the opposite chair. We're going to talk about the Lecomte, which JK mentioned before, and we're going to talk New York too. What are you looking so excited about?
Video with Frank.
Yeah, we're going to try. I said with video. I mean, worst case, we'll pop up a still shot. He's got a flip phone. Is that what you're telling me?
No. The stories are going to be better with him. You can see the look on his face, and you can see that there's actually a human saying those things.
Really quick on the Lecomte, since they've drawn for days, have you had a chance to look yet?
I glanced and I noticed. I was actually talking to Andy Sterling when I looked, and I said, this race only has one horse that started or ran at Saratoga this summer, which I just found to be a little bit interesting. And I think that's probably because Kentucky wasn't as involved in Saratoga this summer. We were very aware of that, and I'm assuming that's the case, but it feels a little bit unique that there wasn't a horse that debuted up there.
There wasn't any? Not even one?
There was one. It was a horse that was Wayne Catalano that ran against reinvestment risk. I think something Guy.
Regular Guy.
It's named after you.
There, actually, Regular Guy. That's our man John Engelhardt from the Midwest, who's fantastic and has been doing great media stuff in horse racing for, I think, even longer than we have at this point on the podcast side and certainly on the video side. Not that I'm saying he's old, but anyway, it's a great gimmick. I thought that we'll talk about it later with Frank, but I thought that the Mandaloon was going to be tough to beat here, and it felt like the
Juddmonte.
Yeah, felt like a good weekend to root for the pink, green, and white to be in the winner's circle.
Nick Luck's podcast, it was great on the network. If you haven't heard that, covering the Juddmonte history, and I thought it was really good.
Yeah, that was great. It's so many different perspectives on just, you talk about the most interesting man in the world, who certainly one of the most interesting in the horse business, to be able to set out to basically be the next Aga Khan and exceed all expectations. It's pretty incredible stuff. And that's a show worth revisiting. Absolutely. Anything else, JK, to yap about before we move on?
Got me thinking about, we're talking about Nick's show. It reminded me that we've obviously tweeted about it and we've been talking about it, but Acacia taking over the In the Ring Pedigree podcast, I think probably deserves a mention.
Oh, no doubt.
Show back. And,
no doubt about it.
I'm excited. That was a good episode. I just love listening to Kurt Becker's voice. I every time, it's one of my favorite things when I get excited when I'm at Keeneland. I just walk around, and I probably drive people crazy. I just walk around saying "Whiting on a 5-length lead." I did take that from Nick Tamero, but it's
to take it. You didn't. You forgot the punchline.
You save it. You gotta let it marinate. Whiting on a 5-length lead. to take it. It's the best. It's the best.
It was an
Such a good
informative
race
show.
car.
He's terrific. But the show was super informative, unbelievably psyched to have Acacia as part of the team and to have In the Ring back up and running. I've had a lot of people ask over the course of the last, whatever it's been since we were doing it regularly, 8 months. I mean, really, maybe 10 months. It was basically the whole pandemic. We did a couple shows early, and then it was just tough to find the juice and to give it to somebody who's so media savvy and so passionate about the business and has knowledge of that area. I think she's just going to crush it with that. I can't wait to see what she comes up with. And what's going on? Has the Billy Koch show dropped yet?
No.
How much editing do you have to do on this thing?
Oh, I haven't edited anything. You know what? Honestly we're working on the logo, and I felt like when we drop it, we're announcing that Billy is doing something else. And I felt like we needed the logo to go with that. So
okay, fair enough.
Out of the bag a little bit, but yeah. So it'll when
we
the
won't
logo
make the announcement here. We've teased it enough.
Yeah. We added the flip-flops to the logo. That's the only thing everyone needs.
I would like to see that, please. If you can send that, send that along, I would appreciate it greatly. Anything else, JK, or should we dive into these races? Anything on your list?
Let's get going here.
All right, let's kick things off. We're talking about Santa Anita, Saturday, January 16th. This is race number 6. Goes at 5:30 Eastern. We're a mile on the turf for 3-year-old Calbreds. This is the Cal Cup Oaks with 200,000 in the pot. JK, how are we going to light this candle?
Well, these races are interesting because I think a lot of times you end up seeing these Calbred horses that might be running on the dirt, but they show up at these turf races because maybe it's an easier spot. Why not take a shot? It's big money for these horses. And so keep an eye on that. But I thought the 4 Warren's Candy Girl, who had the trip last time, was extremely wide. Obviously losing ground in turf races is not ideal. I think Warren's Candy Girl should run much better in here. Second off the layoff, was bet last time, and I think will be dangerous. The 6 Closing Remarks is another one. This horse won first out for Carla Gaines, and Carla Gaines only wins at 10% first out. So we've talked about that on the show as well, as when these horses break through bad stats, there's something that you need to pay attention to. John Sheriffs did it with Gormley a few years ago, and our friend Matt Bernier kind of latched onto him, and he ended up being a nice horse. And famously, there's a horse that starts with the name D that kind of did the same thing. I won't go there. I don't need to be picked on today. And
Divisadero there's a lot of new listeners who aren't familiar with stories, even if you have told them 17,000
I'll tell you guys all about Divisadero if you want. Another time. Okay. I'm going to do a whole JK+1 about Divisadero.
You could get Divisadero on.
Yeah, I'll do 2 hours.
Josh Stevens and Divisadero. He could be his human voice.
And then I like the 8 Delmar Flash as well. This is a horse that ran well last time after missing the break. So these are 3 horses that I want to be getting this whole thing started off with. If I had to pick my top choice, it's going to be Warren's Candy Girl off of that trip. She's drawn down towards the inside now.
I like the 10 in here. Curious that you didn't. I want to hear what you have to say about Westward Breeze, who I thought was back to the better surface with potentially a pace edge in the spot. What was your thought on Westward Breeze?
It's just gonna have to work out a trip from there. But I will tell you one thing, and we've talked about this for the last couple of weeks. So if we're kind of wearing you out with it, I think it's important to realize that this horse, as a 2-year-old, did not run with Lasix, and now can run with Lasix, and is not. And I think that's interesting. So I'm just kidding. It's not interesting. It's a stake, and you can't run with Lasix, so it's not interesting.
We're not going to edit it out because that's just the vibe on this show today.
It is true. I forgot. I've been conditioned to keep looking at that because I do think that there's clues there. You can see horses, and I talk about it in a lot of these races we're going to look at. When you're looking at horses who took money on debut or took money in a start and just didn't quite get there, that could be the oomph they need to be able to live up to those odds that they were bet to. But like I said, in these stakes, they're all off Lasix, so it doesn't matter.
I've always thought the one key in looking for a horse that's going to improve with Lasix is like speed and fade stuff. A horse that's bet and speed and pretty super fade. Very often that horse adds Lasix. I'm going to be that much more inclined to give them extra credit. Now, I don't know if that's smart or not. It's just something I've always done, or really, it doesn't come up really anymore, but I remember doing it when every horse wasn't on Lasix back in the day, and it's something I'm leaning towards here. Part of the reason you got confused, it's just a challenge for horse players to remember what the rules are in these different jurisdictions. But I think you're wise to bring it up and to have it be something you're thinking about. And I think people in the audience should probably do so as well.
Just take a look at it. Just keep in mind, because a lot of, I think we get conditioned to seeing a horse debut was, 2-1, horse runs up the track, comes back second start and adds Lasix. That could be the answer. That could be the reason, the horse, for lots of different reasons. A lot of times trainers will be scared to have something happen. So they'll say, don't push him. Don't push her out there. Just let her kind of go around there. Let's see what happens. We'll make sure she doesn't bleed, whatever it might be. And so I just think it's something to consider.
When first-time starters get bet and don't run well, I know that's something that you always look at, that I always look at. There's a lot of signal in looking at what odds a horse has been recently. It's not the only factor. I don't really think of it like as an angle that you're going to bet automatically. But I really take the point that a first-time starter getting bet, that's typically because they're showing some ability. And whether it's that they need an equipment change to improve or to be doing something different in terms of surface or distance to improve, whatever that is, it's good information to file away. I know you, like me, are a lot interested in the firster who was 4-1 first time out, as opposed to the one that was 24-1 first time out when they come back in their second start.
Right, because the 24-1, you feel like something happened within that race to help that one along to get to wherever they got. Finish fourth, like kind of a late running fourth. My inclination is when I see the horses 24-1 is to say, oh, this pace fell apart, didn't it? And then you look, and most of the time it did, and there's times it didn't, and then you can give the horse respect that they deserve.
Yes, it's a fun little part of handicapping, looking at first and second time starters and the kind of clues you can find. And the LASIK stuff does make it a bit more complicated, but that's not entirely a bad thing, because if you can get a keen understanding of a specialized area like that, maybe it's a way to get an edge. Moving on, JK, to Santa Anita race number 7. We're going at 6 Eastern on the dirt, a mile and a 16th, 3-year-old Calbreds. This is the Cal Cup Derby. 200,000 in the pot once again. I really like number 1, the Chosen Vron in here. A great debut for a trainer whose horses typically improve. The stretch out is definitely a question mark, but based on the way this one finished the race, I feel like the Chosen Vron shapes like one for whom the added ground won't be an issue. Form is working out okay of that first race, as 2 have run back and hit the board. All that said, you're the one people want to listen to around here. How are you going to play it?
Yeah, I like that one too. Obviously, I'm always a little bit hesitant to rail types nowadays. It just doesn't seem like the place you necessarily want to be. I think it's interesting that Johnny rode last time. He was here for that big weekend, and Joel picks up. If you look at Timeform US, the first fraction was pretty quick. 111 was the Timeform US number, and then the second and the third fractions were coded blue. So in a lot of times when a horse wires, I kind of want to downgrade them for that. But I think if you think about it, horse was going 6.5, means the horse popped away from there and then came back to Johnny and settled, didn't run off, settled, which is exactly what you want to see when you're looking at a horse who's going to be stretching out. And I've said it before on the show, that 6.5 seems to be the distance that horses close the most at Santa Anita. So the fact that this horse wired, I think, is interesting. The 4, Good With People, I thought was interesting. Another one that's taken some money in the last few starts, has some tactical speed. I wasn't crazy about the last race, but the 2-back race could win. Feels like more of a B for me, considering the 1, the Chosen Vron, and then the 6, None Above the Law. Same thing. I thought didn't get a perfect ride last time. Kind of got ranked, pulled back. They tried this horse in the Del Mar Juvenile Turf going 2 turns, so maybe the distance is what this horse needs. Sometimes they'll try 2 turns on the grass because it's 2 turns, not because it's on the grass. And I think horses can sometimes finally get that opportunity to go 2 turns on the dirt, and it helps. Another B type for me. I think the Chosen Vron is the one you want.
An A with the 1 and the 4 and the 6 as Bs. That story reminds me of a horrible betting decision back in the day at Saratoga, JK, in the paddock, late in the meet, 2-year-old maidens going, whatever it was, a mile on the grass. And there was this horse that was gorgeous. I was back looking at every horse come through, and there was one just looked so good. But I was like, but if this horse was really that good, why would he be running on turf? Well, Big Brown was pretty impressive that day.
Somebody didn't get Shake Shack.
I think this was pre-Shake. Yeah, this had to be pre-Shake Shack. Actually, this was
my point exactly.
Really back in the day. Next up, Santa Anita, race number 8, 6:30 Eastern, turf, 1.125 miles, 4 and up Calbreds, the Turf Classic. JK, we'll keep it with you.
Well, I think first of all, you got to start with the fact that it feels like the pace is going to be present here. They're going to run a little bit, but I couldn't get away from the 8 Acclimate. Is a horse that I think you have to use as an A type. Horse could get loose. The horse has some really, really big performances. Ran well enough considering who he ran into in the Breeders' Cup turf. I don't think the distance is going to be a problem for this one. I think the pace is the only real issue. But so you want to use that one. But I love the 1 and the 2 in here, the inside types. Something that I've kind of started picking up this last maybe year doing a lot of these Santa Anita Del Mar trips and stuff like that is that Umberto Rispoli and Flavian Pratt, when they can get down there and save ground on the rail, they do a great job of timing their runs, finding their holes, and getting out and following the right horses. They just do a good job at that trip, inside ground saving trips. And it feels like these two are going to get the pace they need to run into. They're going to save ground. They're going to finish. Both of these horses come from out of it. And I think that they can all handle the distance. So these are the 2 that I want. I think those are the 2 that make the most sense. They'll be A's for me as well. The 4 and the 5, I think you could use as B's, interesting types. But the 1 and the 2 are my top choices. But I'll use the A as an 8 as well. The 8 as an A as well.
If I held your feet to the fire for a top pick between the 1 and the 2, which way would you go?
Give me the 2 because I just absolutely know the distance isn't going to be a problem. Brando, the bartender, has sprinted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times that I'm seeing. And I know probably even more than that. So there's a question about, does this one really want to go that far? But getting Umberto Rispoli and taking back and making that one run, that's the kind of trip that I think can work for a sprinter.
We're very similar. I just wanted the 2 and the 1 here. I had the 2 Warden Jerry as the top pick. Figured, as you said, great setup, plenty of speed signed on, and I thought was overall, classy and fast. And I love the fact that Pratt was on board. And then I thought, as the alternative, number 1 Brando, the bartender. Again, you made a great point. Well drawn, Rispoli, 3rd race of the form cycle. I'm in. So 2-1 for me, 2-1-8 for JK, with the 4 and the 5 as backups. Our penultimate contest at Santa Anita on this Saturday. And because it's the penultimate race at Santa Anita, that also means it's the start of the Golden Hour Pick 4. We'll tack on some coverage of the 2 Golden Gate races that will be a part of that sequence. I'm so psyched to have it back. Glad they got through all the difficulties they were dealing with out in Northern California. Super psyched about that. But we'll get to those Golden Gate races later. Right now,
the lights to golden. I made the lights golden hour. Can you tell?
Oh, I'm looking at my notes, but yeah, it looks pretty like you're like in the twilight there now. I like it. Not just the Twilight Zone as usual.
Golden hour, baby. The 3 Fashionably Fast has run about 10 races in his last 11 that win this. Comes in off of a break, hasn't run since August. That's really the biggest question mark. Source has won 3 times first off of a layoff, so it feels like that shouldn't be an issue. But Fashionably Fast has races that just lay over this field. And I think sometimes in these Calbred stakes, you'll find that because it's just that restricted race. So you can find these layups in here that they just happen to be, someone didn't tell them they were a Calbred and they just happen to run hundreds and 90 figures and then they win these races pretty easily. I think the 6 Loudmouth would be the only other one that I think has the last 2 performances that can kind of hang with Fashionably Fast if he doesn't show up. I felt like in this situation, I would probably want to A, Fashionably Fast, and B, Loudmouth, and just hold my breath, see what happens here.
You and I have very similar opinions here in this Cal Cup sprint. I don't think Fashionably Fast showed the real form last time, dueling up in a fast pace before spitting it against better. Significant class drop. And like you said, all the preceding races would look pretty good. Long layoff, but working steadily. And I like the fact I don't have a clocker report or anything, but just looking at times, the recent works look a little bit better. I think it's all about Fashionably Fast here in our 9th race at Santa Anita. Let's close things out with Santa Anita's 10th. We are on the turf, 6 furlongs, 3-year-old and up, maiden special weights. The big question, JK, how are we going to get paid?
Yeah, I'm going to use the 10 Anytown, first-time starter for Mark Glatt. Spitestown, they'll run on anything. talented horses. Gets Flavian Pratt. They went at 25% together, Mark Glatt and Flavian Pratt. And Mark Glatt's had a pretty good year. I mean, he's not a year, I guess maybe not to start off this year, but he had a nice little run towards the end of last year. And so he was one that I wanted to consider. The 7 OMG, it's Jessica, which is a very funny name because it's hard for an adult to say that. OMG, it's Jessica. This horse has speed, took money, and there's a sibling that won on the turf. There's 4 that tried it, 1 that won, but that's enough for me. And I like that speed, turf sprinting. I like the draw. So I felt like, oh my God, if Jessica was one that you might want to consider. Also one adding Lasix for the first time. And then the 5, Miss Bailey, the trainer change. This is interesting. This horse for Mendez was even money back in June at Santa Anita on debut. That's a pretty strong number to be for a first-time starter for an unknown trainer, but it's not a Bow Baffert, a Chad, a Doug O'Neill, whatever. And I think that's important to note. And I think the trainer change is something you wanted to keep an eye on. And then I was going to use the 1 Squared Shady as a B. This is a horse drawn towards the inside. Don't love that spot in these new turf sprints, but I feel like one that maybe could maybe try to get out, has enough speed to maybe get off. So one that I didn't want to get beat by. A 1 horse won at 25-1 the other day, and a 2 horse won at 20 something to 1. So those inside posts, you can work out trips. I just don't think it's ideal.
I just want to make sure we mention the 14, Our Little Tiger. Very interesting if sneaking in off the AE list, and maybe one to pop a stable mail watch on. Caught a little bit of cash on debut, blew the break, but ran on in a way where it was one of those looks like I thought one of those trips where I thought our Little Tiger was figuring things out along the way. Maybe has a bit more talent than the bare running line suggests. And as JK was indicating, the outside post potentially a positive going the 6.5. So needs a little bit of help to get in, but one to keep on the radar for sure. Let's talk about these Golden Gate races, JK. Again, just to remind folks about the Golden Hour double and pick 4. Pick 4 connecting the last 4 races, the last 2 at Santa, the last 2 at Golden Gate, and then the last 2 races of the day, sort of your ultimate get out opportunity to play the Golden Hour double. And I know you're a fan, JK, of both of these bets because of the horse player friendly way they've been designed.
Yeah, I mean, I love connecting 2 different circuits. I think it's fun. Everyone's used to playing the pick 4 at Santa Anita, the pick 5 at Saratoga, but I think when you can mix in a little bit of that and a little bit of this, I think it's just fun. It's a variety and it's interesting. It's like parlaying a college basketball game with a football game. It just gives you a little bit of both, and I like that. So
nicely timed too.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, I love that too. It's a great name as well.
And it is a good name. And then you've got the higher minimums, which I know you're a big fan of.
Always. Yeah. I know they're not the easiest thing for all players, but I always want to encourage players to, part of the reason it's harder is a lot of people want coverage, and coverage is the enemy of the horse player. I think that you have to be careful not to reach too much for coverage, because then you're essentially giving away equity on what your opinion might be. And I think that these larger minimums kind of force you into that. And I also think it makes it harder for the computer automated wagers to be as efficient as possible.
I think those are 2 pretty good points when it comes to this stuff. So the second race in the pick 4, in the Golden Hour pick 4, will be from Golden Gate Fields. Race number 9, 5.5 on the all weather, 4 and up fillies and mares, first level allowance race. I like the fact that Square Peggy, number 3, that the best race came over the synthetic. And there appears to be other speed, but I have this feeling that she could be the best of it, and I want to keep her on side. Her form does tie in closely with the 5, Sing in the Wind. Got close to her without the benefit of the setup the last day, but I felt like if they go too fast up front, she'd be the one who could reverse form with the top pick. And then I wanted to use another closer as well in the 7, Dr. Y Song. Has some finish, and I just thought it was interesting that this is one who has never synthed, but on the Timeform US breeding rankings, ranks best on synth and as a synth sprinter. So a couple of different reasons I like the 7. I was going to try to just use 3, 5, and 7 and get out here. But what did you think, JK?
Yeah, wow. We saw this one a little bit different. I wanted to use the 4, Lots of Pepper. Had speed 2 back, and I know speed's not nearly as dangerous on the on the all weather as it is on the dirt, but I'm a sucker for it. And when you can get out there on the front end, I think a lot of good things can happen. When you got to run through and around horses, a lot of bad things can happen. So I always lean and give a little bit of edge to speed types. I agree with you on the 5. I felt like that was the best closer. And then I thought the 8, Galileo, was another one that had some speed, drawn towards the outside. Doesn't necessarily have to go to the front in here. It feels like a horse that will rate, not a runoff type. And I think could get a nice little trip in here. And I wanted to use the 1 as a B horse. And I thought the turf sprint a couple of races back at Golden Gate, was nice enough. And if they run in front of her, which it feels like they will, she should be able to pick up the pieces. That trip you always see at Golden Gate where they tip out at the top and they come rolling down the middle of the track.
I could see it. I don't have a ton of confidence, but it does seem like if you take nothing away, I suppose it wouldn't be the worst idea to spread if you could afford it in that 9th race at Golden Gate. JK and I nearly going completely head to head, each liking several horses, which doesn't happen too often. Let's talk about the last race we're going to talk about in this section of the show. Golden Gate Fields, race number 10, all weather once again, 5.5 furlongs, 4 and up fillies and mares, claimers 12-5 down to 10-5. JK, why don't you kick this one off?
Yeah, 2 A's and a B here. The 2 A's were the 2 inside horses. The 1, Say Yes Sally. The 2, Money. Say Yes Sally, switching to Jonathan Wong's barn in his career. First time starting with him, 28%. It's pretty strong. Even though he is a high percentage trainer, that's a strong move. You got to expect this horse could run better than they did for the previous ownership and trainer. And then the 2, Money, was another one who speed and fade. Last couple of starts, but now drops in for a tag, was against starter allowance horses. That's a much tougher spot than the 12-5 they'll be in against today. So one I thought could get a little bit dangerous on the front end. And then the 8, Thrills Legacy, was another one, just from a speed figure standpoint, the type that I feel like could come running, has been competitive at this level and was one that I wanted to use as a B type, but I just want the 1 and the 2 as A horses.
We're back to reading each other's mail here. I just wanted to go 1 and 2. You made the cases already. Say Yes Sally fits on paper anyway. New acquisitions for Jonathan Wong often run through the roof. Obvious major player, has some pace. And then the 2, Money, I did think had a chance to maybe be the best of speed while facing significantly weaker. And I really wanted to try to latch onto a closer. I couldn't find one, so I was just hoping those 2 would run around the track. But I definitely see where you're coming from with the 8 as well. Well, that's it, JK. We've covered the races we need to cover on the show. We've mentioned that you're going to be back on TV. We've talked about the new shows and some exciting stuff happening on the network. Any other notes to hit before we let you get out of here?
No, I don't think so.
You're feeling good. You got your microphone working. Now we just need that trophy behind you and we'll be all set. Thank you very much, my friend. Godspeed on TV this weekend.
Talk soon.
Next up on the show, we're moving to the New York circuit, and we have a returning guest. You know him from the Stucast. We're going to talk a little bit about some of what he's been doing in the world of podcasting before we get into this Aqueduct late pick 5 on the Saturday, quite possibly rainy Saturday. Fingers crossed about that. I did look with rain in mind. But as for the guest who's going to help me have a look, he is Alan Stutter. Alan, how are you?
I'm doing great, PTF. Always nice to talk to the Sultan of soliloquies. It's always a pleasure to come on here. This is my favorite show. It's the one I look forward to. It's in the podcast rotation. So always a pleasure, my friend.
As you know, flattery will get you everywhere around here. So we appreciate that. But what have you been cooking with on your own shows, and where can folks find them?
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Real busy. Got a lot of really cool interviews coming on the podcast recently. NFL beat writers. Alex Marvez was recently on, of AEW fame, and you know him. He's a friend of yours. Got future guests to include, possibly an NFL player, NFL rookie that made some waves this year, and even a 4-time Stanley Cup champion coming on the horizon. And then also on YouTube, joined up with some Miami Hurricanes fans, the Scoop on the U, every week doing a college football rundown. Join in. It's really fun. People from Miami just yell at me and I get in arguments for 45 minutes. It's a lot of fun. You should see my DMs. Real fun.
Yeah, be very careful. Be very careful with that. You may consider closing those. 4-time Stanley Cup champion. What we got? Clark Gillies, Mike Bossy, Bobby Nystrom. Which one of my Islanders do you have on there?
No. So we actually went to a real professional hockey team. Red Wings, hoping to get D-Mac, Darren McCarty, 25 in your program, number 1 in your heart on the program. So talking with him, send it out. And I think that's something that we'll be doing soon.
Very cool. All right. Good stuff. You mentioned Alex Marvez. I haven't had a chance to go back and listen to that, but he's fantastic. He does a great job covering the NFL, and he's really been influential in making this new Chris Jericho book what it is. And for those of you out there that don't know, I've been working with Chris, who has gained fame in many realms as a musician through his band Fozzy, and of course in wrestling for many years now, and now one of the big stars over at AEW. And he did something insane. He has recorded the match results by hand of every match he's ever worked in his 30-year career, all 2,722 of them that we captured in the book. But Alex, what he did, not only was he responsible for taking this handwritten document and turning it into a database, but he also fleshed it out, going and getting interviews with opponents that Chris worked with, encouraging Chris to write some of his own material. So he really breathed life into this document. And I've been there in an editorial capacity on this one, and I did a little written contribution myself chronicling my own favorite 10 Jericho matches. Anyway, that's going to be out. It's already on sale, but it's going to be, I'll give you all the details when the time comes. We're putting the absolute finishing touches on it, and the physical book should exist in a couple of months' time. But how was he as a guest? Where did you guys spend most of your time talking about?
Well, we talked a lot about AEW and spent some time talking NFL. You know, he's on Sirius XM's NFL network, and he does a really great show. If you're an NFL fan, that show in and of itself is probably worth a Sirius XM subscription. And you can haggle with them. I think they'll take 12 cents maybe, or whatever you got left in your ADW account. They'll take it, per month. And it's well worth it. So that's what we got on. And I can't wait for that book to come out, man. Like, that's going to be really exciting. Y2J, the demo god, whatever you want to call him. He's phenomenal.
He's one of my favorites, and a real pleasure to collaborate with. I like him more than that other guy I collaborate with on this show from time to time. No, that's not true. I like him and Jonathan equally.
Hey, that's. Oh, I thought you were talking about Spencer Luganbill.
Spencer, also a wrestling mark. Important to know.
Oh, you know he's a mark. He is a super mark, and I'm shooting here.
There you go. Let's talk about this pick 5. It starts off in race number 5. I mentioned there's rain in the forecast. How much did that affect your reckoning of these races, Stu?
Well, in this one, it's really tough because, you look at this race and everyone in here, it's like they can't get away from the rain. It's like, a cloud's hanging over all these horses. Some of them, the 6 square shooter hasn't had a fast track, a dry track in a year and a half. So, it's kind of tough. In here, I leaned mainly on the 8, and this is just a class play. I think this one is just dropping down and, probably is just better. I'm also going to use the 6 square shooter who I mentioned, I think is starting to get used to these sloppy tracks. And also, if you watch a replay of that last one, again, the same race that Vineyard Sound comes out of on December 19. I mean, just a Donnybrook, an absolute pure Donnybrook, breaks out at the gate. The one gets hit a little bit, but I thought Square Shooter got the worst of it, and it certainly took him out of the race early on, but still fought on to get a game second and probably wins that one, if we're being honest, without the start. So those are the 2 that I'm keying on here in this first one.
You're reading my mail to kick things off. Square Shooter, I think, as you point out, better than this bare form suggests. Tough trips. I thought the last 2 runs, and I thought it was notable that the form of those races is working out well. They're producing horses that are running well the next time, which is always a good sign. And then I want Clench also. Never got involved, but that was against much better. Compromised by the tough trip 2 back. Looks very strong. And the only one I'll mention as a backup, you mentioned by name. I wasn't sure if I should be including as a pick for you, but Vineyard Sound I thought was a little bit interesting on the slight bump up in class for the new barn. Based on some of the older races, I thought could be a threat potentially from Honor Near the lead in this one. So I like 6 and 8 as A's and the 1 as a B. Did you have anything other than the 8 and the 6 to kick things off in this pick 5, or did you just want to leave it there?
No, I mean, I would give maybe a slight look to the 1 as well, just based on what you said. But those were the 3 I really went with. But, when I'm going to construct my ticket, I'm probably going to be a little bit more liberal and see how the track's playing. I may bump a few of these up, Topper T, Air Attack. I'm kind of wishy-washy on Skylar Scramjet. I may leave off, but I want to get some coverage here, just pending how the track is going. So my 2 A's, I have maybe a B or 2, and then maybe a couple C's because I have stronger opinions coming up.
Let's talk about race number 6, which is obviously the second leg in this pick 5. We've got an allowance race going 6 furlongs on the dirt. I'll kick this one off. I kept coming back to number 3, Jump for Joy, based on the fact that that this one has something so many of the rivals lack in this spot, and that's consistency. Just in good form, has run good races back-to-back, should get a good trip on or near. And if I'm using her, I think I'm also using the 4 Dovey Lovey, who has form very closely tied in. And I figured just at the multiple of the price, I'm guessing the 4 is going to be of the 3. Trips could turn around the form. Dovey Lovey has a little finish and should be a solid price. And I was also going to use She's a Black Belt Somewhere. Big figure last time. Might have improved for the new barn. So that's another one I want to keep involved at what I think should be a pretty good price. How did you see it?
Yeah, I think this race is really what comes down to what do you feel about Forever Change to 2 and Mrs. S on the outside, the number 8 horse. Both horses, I'm not quite sure, really like sloppy tracks. I mean, Forever Changed hasn't been on a sloppy track in quite some time. You have to go back a few years. Ran okay, but, we're dealing with a little bit of a different horse here at age 5. And Mrs. S, I'm still, consistency. That's what we're talking about here. I'm not sure that I'm seeing it here. So I'm going to play against those 2. I'm including the ones you said. And I just got a thing about Sweet Kisses here, not only from, in real life, I like them, but in this race in particular, I'm a sucker for a horse that shows ability on turf and shows ability on dirt. It just screams like, okay, this is someone or a horse that has the ability to, always give you that A+ effort. And so I want to include Sweet Kisses just on that angle. When you worked with Mike Maloney, shout out to the king of Kentucky there. He talked about ability figures and that part of the book. You might give a little check mark, a little point up pending a jockey or what have you. This is a situation. I see good turf. I see good dirt. I'm going to give a little extra check.
I like the sound of it. How would you grade those runners that you mentioned in here into A's and B's? And who would you make the top?
Jump for Joy, Dovey Lovey as an A. Okay. Sweet Kisses as a B. Bay Jewel, I think, is a B in this one as well. And I'm going to play against the favorites here, maybe to my detriment. I'd include She's a Black Belt as a C, and that's I don't see it there. But I'm going to take your word for it, and at least I don't want a mean text to come my way Saturday afternoon.
We'll leave that one in the mix based on my say so, and then we'll go ahead and we'll talk about race number 7, 3-year-old New York bred maidens this time around, and we'll keep it with you. What are we going to do here?
Well, I've been spreading around up to this point. I've been pretty liberal with the horses I'm using. I'm giving some positive vibes too here. This race just, it's kind of almost written for its gravy. When's the last time you've seen a 3-year-old maiden with almost $100,000 in the bank already? To me, it just screamed like It's Gravy makes the sense here, and that's probably who I would single in this sequence to try and make this ticket a little bit more palatable. If you're against It's Gravy, I think the 178 really stood out to me as, being very interesting. But, just based on class and figures, I'm just going to lean on him.
I was a little bit skeptical, certainly more skeptical than you. And it's not that he doesn't make sense in this spot. I just felt like because of the fact that the horse was coming out of a stake, I was thinking might get overbet. And I felt like that was such a good setup that day. Now, all that said, looking at how the pace figures to play out in this spot, Timeform actually has on the lead. Could get a great trip again. But I was going to use more as a backup and try to get Brewpub in, the 8, who you mentioned as one of your backups. I just feel like this one's unlucky to still be in the maiden ranks, and I thought could break through. I like this draw, and I just like the horse on form and figures. I feel like looks the equal to me nearly of It's Gravy at what I'm hoping is going to be a multiple of price. And I will be watching this race from the Twin Spires app on my phone from Strong Rope Brewery, their little outdoor area today. So you throw in the hunch play, Brewpub for me at the top level. And then, It's Gravy, an obvious backup. And I thought more for verticals, but I might still list, maybe do like one line somewhere with the 7 Oliver's Fortune, just as a price to spice things up. Ran pretty well the last day after blowing the break, and just seemed like one that could be a double-digit horse that felt likely to improve. So we're kind of going head-to-head here, but not so much that we're not including each other's horses as backup. So I guess it's not really a head-to-head, huh?
Well, kind of. I mean, you're certainly going to be getting a very vile meme if I come away with this.
I'm okay with a taunting meme. I'm not sure how I feel about.
I will find a Panama hat like the one you're wearing right now, and you will get a meme of me stomping on it. I will go buy one just to make a meme.
Let's hope that no hats are actually harmed in the making of this meme. We shall see. And we shall also move on. We'll talk about race number 8. We go to the stakes ranks here. This is another race that's a little bit like the last one. And then for me anyway, there's 2 horses that really stand above the pack, and you got to make a decision about what you want to do with them. It is the 3-year-old New York bred Franklin Square going 6.5 on the dirt. And I eventually decided to put Vacay on top. Number 1, I thought was an interesting alternative to the favorite. She stamped herself as a potential divisional talent on debut, winning despite being green, then backed that up romping in a stakes. I like the fact that in the hands of this hot barn, Todd Pletcher, you've got 5 works since. I just feel like she's going to move forward again. And as good as Laubon on a Prayer of the 4 has been, and as obvious as she is, yeah, sure, she could handle this field as easily, but I don't feel like she's faced one as good as Vacay. And there's also a chance that this one, the first good race was a mile, last 7, now back to 6.5. Maybe this is a little sharp for Laubon on a Prayer. So I'm going to use them both, but I'm going to press Vacay. Vacay is more like the A, Laubon more of a B. And then Rosa Veloce, worth mentioning just on the chance that she can shake loose for your man, Ray Handel. Are you going to be a homer and go with Rosa Veloce, or are you going to pick between the 2 at the top of the market?
Well, Bon Jovi, I agree with you that Laubon on a Prayer. Yeah, I think 6.5 is probably not what you want to do here. And Vacay, yeah, you're right. I mean, Vacay, it makes sense here. But, yeah, I am going with the official trainer of the Stucast, Raymond F-word Handel. Rosa Veloce, I talked to him this morning about this horse. And here's the one thing I know about Ray. Ray can spot a horse really well. I mean, he makes his living off identifying where his horse fits in, and he kills it. Watch him at Saratoga every year. He's not a guy that's getting Bob Baffert's string. He's working hard and spotting smartly. I think he's doing it right here. This one I know has more in its bag. It has more gimmicks than just going on the lead. It doesn't just need the lead type. It has some tactical ability. Being to the outside, I think that's probably where you want to be. That's just a guess. We got to see how the course is playing. But the big thing for me, when we were talking this morning, he said, look, she's ready to go. She's fit as a fiddle. She's going to give an A effort. So I think I got to include not only because, he's my guy, but also just knowing how he spots them and this one's ready to go. I'm going to include on my ticket.
What would you do in terms of A's and B's and backups? And Rosa Veloce, I'm assuming, should be listed as your top pick for the presumed value you're going to be getting.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 1-5 as my A's here. I'm not gonna let Leoban on a prayer take me out here. So I want to see what the odds are. Maybe a B, maybe a C, maybe off the ticket. I mean, that's the one I don't like the most out of the three, and we got to preserve some value here. So it'll be 1 and 5 as A's. This is more of an exacta play for me. I might hit it hard here and just try to key 1/5, Dutch it a little bit with the 5/1, and maybe another combination or two. But that's my play in this one.
Let's move on to the nightcap. We are in the allowance ranks once again, going a mile on the dirt for fillies and mares. And you can answer the big question: how are we going to get paid?
I'm just surprised to look up, and I'm going, man, these are some really good horses for a $5,000 claimer to end the day at Aqueduct. But I'm like, oh, it's an allowance. Okay. Yeah, I went 3 here. Some guy named Marshall Graham and Clay Sanders from some outfit. I don't know. They seem like nice, young, youthful gentlemen. I'm going to go critical value here. This is just a hunch play that this one is just a little bit classier, and I like the class move here. And I think you get every bit of that, 5-1 maybe, which is a nice little play here. And then I'm going to go to the outside. 50 Shades of Green. Seem like there's something there. I can't pick my exact point on it. The sloppy track first off a long layoff. I know Linda's historically better first off the layoff, but the numbers second time out are pretty good too. So I think there's room for improvement off a pretty decent layoff. And then Maiden Beauty. And I think Maiden Beauty, I think the time form projector here is a little off. I think the 10 can work out a great trip at the front, right behind the 9, and give me that position in a race like this.
You like those 3 as A's equally, or would you want to grade them a bit?
I'm going to use those 3 as A's, and I'll probably back up with the 2, Love and Love, and the 7, I Dare You. Real tough to throw out George Weaver. I don't want to get beat by him, but that's how I would play the ticket. Again, it gives me a little bit of leeway because a couple races back, I'm singling. It's gravy, so I can still get out of here without mortgaging my house to pay for the ticket.
I have a similar approach in terms of just spreading around and having a little bit of trouble grading them. Though I would call one that you didn't mention, which could be worrisome it is worrisome for one of us. But the 4 South of the Shore, I just thought looked really strong. Thought she'd be able to improve second time off the layoff, and had a little bit of subtle trouble last time out, losing position in the middle of that race. C'est Moi is one I've been keeping on the radar and trying to find the right spot for. Not sure if this is it, but I definitely want to use. Appears to be working well for her return to the races, and has had some bad luck at a couple of days. I had her on rails I didn't think were great, and I like just the jock switch just to do something different with one who seemed unlucky. And then I'm absolutely with you about our pals at 10 Strike Racing and critical value. You're right about there is maybe a subtle class angle here, but there's also the fact that her last 2 trips haven't been any picnic at all. Not quite sure what was going on the last day, and then the race 2 back spent plenty of time on a rail I didn't think was great. I mean, beaten by enough that maybe you can't make that excuse. But back in this kind of a spot with that big number to run back to 3 back, I like this one 4-1-5 to try to get out of here and hit all these late picks. Any closing thoughts from you, Stu? We got to let producer Craig get to his 11 o'clock meeting here, so we don't have too much time.
Yeah, no, I just love coming on. Folks, Bills Mafia playing this weekend. Barstool fun. Go support them. Just helped out the Parting Glass, a great establishment in lovely Saratoga. go donate, go help out some of these small businesses, and go Bills and Roll Tide.
That was cool to see the news.
That was awesome. Yeah.
First bar I ever went to in Saratoga at some random point in the mid 90s when it was, but in a pre-beer geek world, it was wild to go in there and see, I don't even know, it might have been 24 taps, but it might as well have been 100 for what the beer scene was like in 1995. I think they still have some of the same beers, not the same kegs, but
I really feel like the first bar you went to was a speakeasy and there was Fred at the door and there was a password. I feel like that's the real story, but we'll go with that. The parting glass was first. We'll go with that.
We'll take it. And the Bills, are they home again this weekend?
Yes, they are home. They are home against the Ravens. 2.5 point spread. It's going to be it's a pick 'em basically.
Same deal in terms of limited fans. And I mentioned this on a horse racing show because I think it's just so important. I feel like if they can get through these experiments with the limited fans in these two Bills games without it being tied to more of an outbreak, I'll start to get super confident about us having something resembling a normal Saratoga with what the difference. If they can do that now with what's going on in the world, I feel like by August, I'm gonna start feeling real good. Let's put it that way. So that's
I think they're doing pretty good at it. Yeah, I'm right in the same boat with you. I hope.
Do you have a pick for that game?
I'm gonna lean Bills because Bills Mafia. My pick of the weekend is the Saints. But, I'm just going to play against the Red Wings, give them a goal and a half, play against the Blackhawks. That's your real plays. Go win some money, bet some hockey.
Check them out, folks. The Stucast. Is there a one-stop shop to get to you? Or
wherever you get your podcasts, folks, just check me out. And also on Twitter at Stucast Sports. PTF. I got to go right, man. I got some stuff to do, brother.
Let's do it. Thank you, Stu.
Cool. Let's go.
Last but certainly not least, one of the most popular guests in the history of these shows we put on here on the In the Money Network, and a voice, I'm being completely sincere when I say, was extremely comforting and great to talk to in the early days of the pandemic for his humor, for his positivity, and also because I think he gave us a few winners we were able to cash on back when we needed the bucks. I'm talking about professional horse player Frank McGoey. Frank, what's up, my man?
How are you, Pete? It's been crazy down here. Crazy couple of weeks, I'm telling you. Starting with FloCal last Saturday and Sunday. And that rolled right into how old are you, Pete?
I am 48 years old.
Oh, so you're not at the age yet where you get to have a colonoscopy. This was colonoscopy week for me.
I did it. I actually did it. They're changing the guidelines now in wanting 45. So at least my doctor. So I've been able to have that fun.
So this was my second one. So because I'm 56. So besides a couple of the rides I got on the turf course at Gulfstream and my colonoscopy on Tuesday, I took it up the ass a couple of times this week. Right?
Oh, fantastic.
In addition, let's see, we put a new house under contract last night, and we've got LeCompte Day tomorrow, and I'm leaving for Pegasus on Wednesday. So,
oh my goodness.
We got a lot going on down here. It's been busy.
That's madness. Now, I haven't been following that closely in terms of the restrictions at the fairgrounds. Have you been able to get out and watch horses work, as I know you love to do this time of year?
So it's been different. So normally when I would go out there, it was very convenient because I'd just go in the main building and they would let trainers or anybody else, owners that wanted to watch in the main building. You go sit in the grandstand. It's nice and air conditioned or the heater's on, whatever. I would sit in somebody's box, put on the TV, watch ESPN or watch the news, and then just start, the horses that caught my eye, taking notes on them. But with the COVID, they won't let anybody inside. So to make an adjustment, instead of going out and standing on the steps like all the trainers have to do now outside in the elements, I've just been going after the renovation break and concentrating on the gate works a few days a week.
Okay.
Because there's nowhere to get situated and set up a book and all that. I go out there with my phone and just start recording, and I'm just talking into the phone, recording comments, and then I decipher it later after the work tab comes out.
Well, as with the connections you have down there, I'm sure you'll have plenty of insights on the whole array. So we'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that. General question for you about your wagering. we talked to you early in the pandemic and checked in with you over the summer, but I'm just curious how this one of a kind year of racing might have changed you as a horse player and how you managed to cope with it throughout the whole to where we are now, hopefully having turned the corner.
I think in general, it's made me very grateful to be a horse fan because we were so lucky that really we didn't miss a beat, you know. And if anything, we probably brought some new people into the game. I know the interest level amongst most of my civilian friends that were weekend warriors was ramped way up. I mean, they were involved every day playing at Will Rogers and Fauna Park, and you know, I mean, they had nothing else to do, so why not? So we were very fortunate. I feel blessed that horse racing is my passion, and I'm more, you know, attuned to it now and grateful than ever before.
That's fantastic to hear, and it sounds like it's been going pretty well as well. You've been hitting them okay. You said off air.
We've been doing when you can keep paying the bills, you're doing something right.
Any interesting stories out of that contest, the FloCal contest? I was planning on having our buddy Benny South Street on next week to help out with our Pegasus coverage. He ended up running second in there. I was going to talk to him about it, but what did you get out of that experience?
It was I was fine. I was in content. I thought day one looked fairly formful, and it wound up being that. I had about 100 points after day one, and then on day two, I had identified some price horses that I thought had a shot, and couldn't connect on any of those. I wound up with like 140.
Oh, we've lost Frank. We'll see if he comes back. Oh, there he is. We lost you for a second, but you're back. You're back, Frank, but we don't have your audio. Now I think we got you.
I'm sorry. I had a call come through.
Oh, that was it. You ended up with 140, you said.
Yeah, I ended up with 140. Couldn't connect. I felt bad for the guy that was on the lead most of the way. I don't know him, but apparently a few of the guys that I know are friends with him, and he had picked really well. And isn't it ironic that the one limit horse the whole weekend was in the last race of the contest?
It's frustrating, and I'm pretty sure Benny will freely admit when he comes on that he ran second because he played the math. I mean, it's one of the limitations of those. That contest, the format of, they should do what we did back at DRF, have cut lines. If you can do a big 2-day mythical with cut lines, you make it so much more fair. And then at least the people who are there at the end who picked that horse because of the math, they earned the chance to throw that Hail Mary in a way where I don't feel like that is always the case. You in general, though, you don't totally look down on mythical contests, right? You'll participate.
No, I will. And that would, I didn't have anything else to do that weekend. So it seemed like it was good and the pot was good. So we took a shot. I will say the horse that won the last, I'm not going to, he wasn't going to be for me, but I had noted and mentioned to a few people how well Rispoli had ridden all weekend on the turf over there. He was riding good. So if you had to reach out for somebody, he was fine. And then Paul Matisse had made a comment the first week they ran on the new turf shoot. And he said, there's going to be a big advantage to being across that dirt first. And if you went that angle, that horse was logical to have too.
Yeah, a couple of good points.
That was another way you could have gone.
Let's talk about this card at Fairgrounds on Saturday, LeCompte Day. Eager to get your opinion about that one for those watching. Frank clearly readjusting his camera. He'll get it there in a second. But was there anything early, Frank? I know sometimes you'll come up with some clever things in these undercard races we've talked about. Did you have anything early on in the day that you want to talk about? I started looking at race 9.
Yeah. They have three really good maiden races, starting with the second. Are you there?
Yes, I've got you. You're back in action now. Yeah, you sound good. So maiden races starting with the second. What did you like in there?
Okay. I think she's going to wind up being a favorite, but Amos's horse, Little Tootsie, has really been doing good since her last race. And she's going to probably take a lot of beating in that spot. She'll be much more professional this time and won't have as much ground to make up, I don't think. And the horse that beat is a nice horse too, Mariah's Princess, who is a Bauer horse. So I think she'll be very good. The fourth race is another race that's just loaded with talent. The Calhoun barn's been very high on the Run Classic. The Cox horse that Bridge Mahan's riding, Warrant, has been impressive, and so has Otto the Legend for Asmussen. And there's others too that I haven't seen, but that's a very contentious race. And then the 6th race where they're stretching out for the first time. That's another race where you've got a lot of talent in there. And Al Stahl's got one I think will improve with some distance in there. And Asmussen's horse, Big Lake, I know he was on the vet list at Churchill for bleeding last time. He'll probably improve with the Lasix down here. And Cassie probably will be involved in that race too. So those are 3 very good races where we could see some talented horses come out of early in the card.
I love it. We'll definitely pay attention and keep an eye on those ideas that you had. With that said, Frank, unless you have anything in between, I say we move along to race number 9. You ready? You ready for that, or you got anything else to talk about early?
No, I'm good. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Let's do it. All right, race number 9, 4:54 Eastern. We're at 1.16 miles on the turf for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up, $100,000 stake. A lot of my opinions are just super straightforward, and the people are really here to hear you. So I'll give my quick thoughts, and then I'll let you go in depth. In this spot, I just thought the Lika, the 5, looked too tough. Proven very versatile in terms of running style. Should be set to move forward second time off the layoff. Just very basic handicapping angles. How did you think this one was going to play out?
Yeah, I think, it's her race to lose. Absolutely. I mean, Al was very high on her last time she ran, Al Stahl, and she did it so easy. I mean, she was in control throughout. She went around the track with her ears up, and she had so much horse on the gallop out that it's hard to imagine she doesn't have another one in the chamber for tomorrow. The only thing I would say maybe as something to be a little cautious of is that the rails will be down again, and that normally plays to inside speed at the Fairgrounds. But we got a significant amount of rain on Tuesday night, and we were off the turf yesterday. So I think they're on the turf today. There'll be a little more cut in the ground. So it may not be as the same type of turf course, but she's clearly the horse to beat based on her last effort. And I wasn't real cute I was a little bit cute about some of the horses I had maybe underneath. The one for Ignacio Correa's Joy Epifora, that horse has been working good down here. Doesn't have much turf form, none in the States, but may sit a decent trip and wouldn't shock me if she performs well. And then Secret Message, who came out of the same race as Dalica, was kind of uncovered in that race all the way around there. She was like 4 wide the whole time. Probably will get tucked in a little bit tomorrow, being in the 3-hole, and get a better trip. But it's very interesting that Giroux is opted to go to the Cassie horse, the 2, coming from Woodbine, who I don't know much about. I watched the replays. Looks like a nice horse. But I still think that Dalica is the horse to beat. I had put Dalica on top with the 1, 2, and 3 underneath.
There you go. 5 with 1, 2, 3 for Frank in that one. Let's move on to race number 10, 5:23 post time expected for the Grade 3 Louisiana Stakes. We're on dirt at 1.16 miles, 4-year-olds and up. There was definitely a horse I wanted to ask you about in terms of workouts in here. That's Wells Bayou coming here off the long break. But I will just give my appreciation of number 9, Sonneman. Just very consistent and tough. Ran into Maxfield last time out. That loss, no shame there. I was very interested in Sonneman. Not quite sure what to do with Wells Bayou, who certainly would have license to need the run. Have you had a chance to clap eyes on this horse?
I haven't. He's been working at Oaklawn, so I have no idea. I hear he's been doing okay up there, but I haven't seen him down here. I know that Asmussen's barn was very high on Sonneman last time. I think they thought they had a shot to knock off Maxfield. If they were going to knock him off last time was probably the time. I find it interesting that Santana chose Silver Prospector over Sonneman. I'm guessing he did, unless, Steve tells him where he's going to ride. But I kind of had the feeling with Sonneman that last time was probably the time for him. He had come off that big effort at Churchill, and I think he was like fully cranked. They were expecting a big effort, and he didn't draw great tomorrow. I mean, he drawn outside. I don't know. All I know is I'm pretty sure how Giroux is going to try to ride Wells Bayou like he always does when these outside draws he gets, and just hustle him and try to dominate. But I kind of got the feeling that Adam Beschiccio on Blackberry Wines, he's kind of aggressive too. And I doubt they're going to let him get away that easy. So the way I looked at the race, and I don't have a huge opinion in the race, but the way I looked at the race is that there'd be a little pace in there, and that Silver Prospector, who had just absolutely no trip at all last time in the Clark from that wide draw, was probably going to get a fantastic trip, since the rail horse Grand Luigi, who's inferior to these, has some speed and will leave there. And then Captivating Moon has no speed. So Silver Prospector may just sit that perfect pocket trip. And if he's ready and cranked up enough off that effort, he's going to be tough. So I was leaning towards Silver Prospector. I thought Blackberry Wine's effort was solid last time, even though it wasn't a great field. He might have a chance to move forward. And then the horse for Jeff Engler coming in, Indamage from Tampa, that barn's won 3 races this past week at Gulfstream. So they're firing on all cylinders. And that horse, even though his numbers are slow, a little bit slower than some of these, he's fit. And that's always dangerous coming in when you're facing horses that are coming off layoffs. So I had thought Silver Prospector maybe be a slight lean with Blackberry Wine, Indamage, and Wells Bayou, and maybe a little bit of Sonneman, but I'm not as high on Sonneman as I was last time.
Okay, very interesting. 8 and maybe the 9 there. Do you like this race for verticals, or is it more a horizontals try to survive race?
Well, I think the morning line on Silver Prospect is probably a bit off, don't you? 5-1. Doesn't that seem a little high for him?
It depends. To me, the market is so hard to make. If there was all this positive buzz about Wells Bayou and Sonneman, I could see that. I could see that holding. But if one or both of them are a little cold, then you could totally see Silver Prospector getting a ton of wise guy attention, especially, as you pointed out, attracting Santana. So probably it's going to be a little bit lower than that.
Right. Yeah, I think he's probably a little bit more of just a lean in multi-race plays to me. Since I haven't seen him and I don't know how he's doing, it's hard for me to really take a stand. But I'll lean on him because I think Wells Bayou will definitely, even though capable of winning, Giroux and Cox are going to be over bet all day.
Well, there is that, and we'll be talking about a couple of their runners.
That's my take on that.
Yeah, in just a minute. But that makes absolute sense. But I'm going to list you for my little show notes I'm doing now for our In the Money Plus people. I'm going to write it basically in order of preference: 3, 4, 5, mixing in the 8, and maybe a little of the 9. Does that reflect your opinion there? Did I lose you there, Frank? Let's see.
I would say 3, 4, 8, 5.
3, 4, 8,
and maybe a little bit of Sonneman underneath. Right.
Okay, maybe a little 9 underneath. There we go. All right.
I would say leaning more 3, 4, 8, 5. 3, 4, 8, 5, or 3, 4, 5, 8. Sonneman,
take your pick.
Sonneman is a little bit more of an afterthought.
We were having a couple of technical difficulties there, so as much as it pains me not to look at Frank's beautiful face, we're going to go with a still image and pick up with Frank audio only. What's going on down there? Don't you have the internet in New Orleans?
I'm a dinosaur, Pete. I don't know what's going on down here. Things are so backward. There's no telling. It could be me. Could be the internet. It's probably a little of both. How's that?
The important thing is we're getting your thoughts on these races, and the next one we want to cover is Fairgrounds race number 11, 5:52 Eastern is the post time for this 1.16 mile turf stake with $125,000 in the pot. My boring opinion, I felt like the one logical myth was a handy type, well drawn again, beat a serious rival the last day in cross border. I definitely wanted to have some logical myth on my tickets, but Frank, very curious what you think about this one.
Well, the good news about my opinion in this race is that you're not paying me for it because I am beyond clueless. I do know this. Logical myth got the most perfect trip in history last time to win a blanket finish. And yes, could definitely get it again today, but I think it was in the 9-1 range last time. Doubt he will be tomorrow. But yeah, he could win. I could see him winning. I think Big Agenda is one of those horses that was probably intended to run at Churchill when they took all the races off the turf at Churchill, and so maybe that Turfway race was maybe a prep to get him back in shape. I expect him to give a good effort. I don't know what to think about Maraud. The Calhoun Barn's not really known for distance turf runners, but I mean, if I have no opinion, it'd be tough to leave him out. I'm not a huge Vittori Kin fan, but how often do you see Stidham claim a horse for himself? So I guess you got to respect that. Split Wickets is coming in town, obviously to run on the grass. He's got some good races. And Spectacular Gem and Sailing Solo are two legit speed threats that if they hook up, they'll probably damage each other. But if they line up, whichever one's in front will probably have an advantage if he's going fast enough. And if he backs it down slow enough, whichever one's stalking will probably have an advantage. So I'm really have no clue in this race. I'm going to spread beyond what I probably should.
So no point in rank. You don't have a top pick. No point in ranking those numbers. We'll just roll with them.
No, I'm not knocking you, but I mean, I would. Logical Myth can't get as good a trip as she got last time. I doubt it. So
my thought I did consider that, and I totally agree with you that he absolutely tripped out there. I was just thinking he looks the kind of horse with the ability to make his own trip, and that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he definitely could. But I also think the way the turf course was playing last time helped him. And like I had mentioned when we discussed the race with Delica, I'm in the rain we've had. I'm not sure it's going to play exactly the way it normally does with the rails down. We probably get a better idea after you watch some of today's turf racing.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. But give me your list for your full spread here, if you don't mind, just so I can include that in my little write up.
So I wrote down 1, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11 as the horses I was going to use, and I also mentioned Vittori Kin, who's a 6, who just doesn't really look good enough. But I can't knock anybody for using anybody in here, really.
All right, I'll include all of that. We'll see how it plays out on the track. Now that is a great point about how the turf course was playing. That was not something I'd considered. So we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out on Saturday. Let's move on to our Kentucky Oaks prep. Race number 12, 6:20 p.m. Eastern on the dirt, going a mile 70 for 3-year-old fillies. It's the Silver Bullet Day. I'll start off with just a quick Silver Bullet Day remembrance. I liked her so much. Traveled around and watched her. The first time I actually ever met JK's hero, Bob Baffert, was at Monmouth when she ran down there. I just coincidentally was seated in the next box to him, and that was like a huge thrill for me as a new racing fan at that point to meet this guy who was a rock star to me after Silver Charm, and then watching her win at Saratoga was amazing, and then also seeing her out west. My only visit ever to the late Hollywood Park was to see Silver Bullet Day win out there. So I always enjoy this race. You have fond memories of her?
Fairgrounds. Yeah, I was at the Fairgrounds the day she won at the Fairgrounds.
Oh, that's great.
I forget what they call. Was it the Louisiana Oaks she came in for? I'm pretty sure it was. I guess it was. But yeah, I mean, and I'm pretty sure Gary Stevens rode her that day, and she just drummed the field.
Yeah, she was tough customer.
I do remember.
And ran a lot too.
Yep.
You know, she ran a lot of runs during that 3-year-old campaign. It's amazing to think how the game's changed.
It seemed like horses back then all ran a lot.
Yes. This wasn't quite like the day, but it was a half measure, I guess, between the real old war horses and what we've come to see now, where they seem to get wrapped in cotton wool for a month before they even resume training for the next start. But anyway, that's a topic for another time. I was a little bit interested in the 3 in this spot, Charlie's Penny. Super sensational.
The stretch out?
Yes. Super sensational beat before, but that was on synth, and I think she's come on since then. I just didn't think it wasn't a bad run through, given the trouble I thought in the last race. And I'm not ready to put this one in the category of a horse that just doesn't break well. I'm intrigued. I'm curious to hear what you think.
Right. So, I'll tell you this, and for the listeners, I'm pretty sure that Minute Waltz and Divine Comedy are coming out of this race. I think they're both going to be scratched.
Okay.
And Minute Waltz was a little interesting, particularly because in her last work, she had worked with an older horse, and Florent Giroux had worked her. So I don't know if they had another race in mind that they were thinking about riding him on down the line, or whatever. But I couldn't figure it out, knowing that he was going to have them out on Sunpath. But anyway, she'd work good, and so I don't know. Hope nothing's wrong with her. But with those two out, I guess the best advice I could offer about Charlie's Penny is doesn't have the looks of a horse that's going to get better the further she goes. Looks built more like a one-turn type horse from what I've seen. I can tell you this, if you have any questions about the one handle and dirt, I wouldn't, because she gets over the track great. She looks, very legit and should be a formidable foe to Sunpath, in my opinion. Sunpath has done nothing wrong and obviously has a lot of talent. Couldn't have gotten a much better trip than she got last time and beat a bunch of inferior horses here. Did it very easy. And, that's going to be Giroux's going to set up shop outside in the usual Florent Giroux outside post ride that he's going to put on these horses. But I really think it's probably a showdown between the 1 and the 9. The horse that I think is on the improve and definitely improved with a little more distance going 2 turns is Amos's horse, Little Stitious, who, if you haven't watched her replay from Delta Downs, I think it's worth watching. I mean, she really finished. She kind of exploded and drew away from a field. They weren't great, but they weren't bad. And I think it's probably more of a product of her, with her breeding, enjoying more ground. So I wasn't nothing fancy here. I'm between the 2 big ones, 1 and 9, as the 2 horses that I think are the ones to beat, and I think Amos's horse will keep improving, Little Stitious.
All right, the Lakes 8 as a possible improver. Showdown between the 1 and the 9 is how we'll characterize that one. And we'll move it on to the big one on the day, the Lecomte. I've got a little write-up. We'll probably link to it in the newsletter. I went through this field for our friends over at attheraces.com. And in the end, my opinion was pretty dull. Now, you mentioned the rumors about those horses potentially coming out of the Silver Bullet Day. I had seen something online about some potential scratches in here. Maybe we should start with those, Frank.
Yeah, I definitely heard that Beep Beep and Dynamite are coming out. Is anybody else?
I think there was another cross-entered horse that was going to go in the other race. That is what I heard a rumor of.
There's another race that we're racing here on Monday, I believe, and I think there's a race Monday that some of them might be going in.
Gotcha.
Because the 2 heavy heads in here, I mean, the Asmussen horse, Midnight Bourbon, who has faced some really nice horses and has been working good up to this, and Mandaloon, I mean, they clearly look like the horses to beat, especially the way the race is going to play out now. Doesn't look like there's a whole ton of speed in this race, and they kind of seem like they're going to line up in this race or be very close to a moderate pace, and look like they'd be real tough to kick down from anybody from behind. That was my opinion. I wasn't flashy in here either. Yeah,
I gave the slight edge to Mandaloon. Very curious to see if you've gotten to see any of these or heard anything about how they're doing. But
I've seen Mandaloon. It was more of a maintenance work, but he looked fine. He looks good. Midnight Bourbon's 5 furlong work was good. I was happened to catch that. That was a good work. Maybe a horse underneath that had caught my eye. Santa Cruiser has the look of a DeSormo horse that just gets better every time he runs with more experience. He's not one to really crank him up. So I would expect him to keep moving forward. An Arabian Prince, Dallas's horse, the 2 comes from maybe a little bit far back, the way the pace is going to play out, but should get a decent trip. Brian Hernandez has been riding fantastic here.
It's a good note.
So but my opinion would be 1 and 10, definitely clearly the horses to beat, maybe some 7s and 2s underneath.
All right, 110 with some 7s.
I'm pretty strong against Proxy, who just walked on the lead in the last 2 starts. And Mitchell Morel is aggressive. He may try to make the lead again, but he's not going to do it in the time he did it, in the pace scenarios he got last 2 times he won.
Makes perfect sense. I'm hoping Mandaloon gets the job done. Cox seems very confident that the added ground is just going to bring this one forward and has already been so impressive. And I wouldn't mind seeing the pink, green, and white in the winner's circle here over the weekend either. Those Judd
they
colors.
Deserve one.
Yeah.
Yep. He gave a lot to the game.
So,
no doubt about that.
We'll see. Anything else, Frank, before we get out of here? Another, you gave us your quick story early, but I'm always pressing you to talk more. The listeners love it.
Well, you I knew I was going to be talking to you, and somebody had called me this week and asked me if I had a phone number for somebody, and I said, yeah, I'll shoot you over the contact, and I shot them over the contact, and they sent back LOL, and so later when I talked to them, I said, what was that about? They said, well, you had them listed in here as Shorty. That's how I got them listed in my contact, and I started thinking, well, I mean, that's what I call them. So I started looking through my phone, and every person that I've got listed under one name is horse related, and I jotted them down for you. I thought you'd get a kick.
Yeah, I want to hear these names from your phone. That's great.
I've got a Spike who he has to change his number every month because he uses burner phones. I've got a Mullet, 2 Ducks, a Sponge, a Turbo. Who Turbo was an unlicensed pharmaceutical salesman. He's deceased now, but he used to. I haven't deleted his number. He used to get some real good information from the jocks when they wanted to settle their bill. I got a Peaches. I got a Red. I got the Cisco Kid. I've got Little Gary, Little Coop, Shorty, Big Coop, Nobby, Clocker, Walnuts, and Rico. All these are horse related.
I think I know a couple
Only
of those guys.
In the sport of horse racing, could you have this?
Oh, there's so many.
Right?
I think you could probably tell a story about every single name in that phone. It's going to be hard to beat Turbo.
They could probably all tell a story about me. So, I mean, that's why I can't give it up.
Oh, that's amazing.
Anyway.
That's just great.
Yeah. So, but other than that, it's just a normal Friday. We're going to be fired up at the Fairgrounds, Gulf Stream today, and hopefully roll into the weekend and carry it onto Gulf Stream.
Frank McGoey, thank you so much. Really appreciate your coming on. We'll get this text set up, and we'll have you back on very soon to talk about Fairgrounds and tell a few more stories about some of the names in that phone.
I hope I have a good one coming back from Pegasus.
All right, good stuff, Frank. Thank you. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Would like to thank my guests, Jonathan Kinchin, Alan Stutter, and of course, Frank McGoey. Major props to producer Craig Gorbanoff, DJ Unstable, whatever you want to call him. He ran a marathon last weekend, and he's going to have a marathon editing session to get the show up and running on the air, but I'm sure he'll manage this one just as well as he did out there on the roads. Congrats one more time to him. I'd like to thank our continuing partners, 10 Strike Racing, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. You happen to hit something on this show, you want to give something back. We don't take tips, but the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation does. trfinc.org/players is the place to give. Shout out to our friends over at Twin Spires, JK and I contributing those expert picks as part of their crack team. Any major circuit you go to, you click that little button, you see those expert picks, and you go from there. Continue to support them as well. That's another way you can help us out. But most of all, I do want to thank all of you, the listeners, the viewers, for making the show so much fun to do, for getting In the Money Plus off to such a great start. If you want details on that, by the way, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. That's going to do it. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.